Welcome back, Mando.
Oh, greetings, Bucketheads. Mivar Tagar. Welcome to our 379th comic book reading episode of MandoVision. I am your host, Nargai Tom, and thank you so much for checking out this small, independent Star Wars podcast. We're so glad you're here. Reach out to us on those socials at Mando_Vision on X and Insta, MandoVision at Blue Sky, and of course you can email the show, MandoVisionTom@gmail.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share this show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. All right, Bucketheads, we are back for another exciting installment of the MandoVision podcast. And it's not quite the episode I had envisioned for today, but we shall carry on and do Star Wars-y things because Star Wars is all. So we have a little bit of an episode that's going to be talking about what Marvel Comics is doing over for the 10-year anniversary of Rogue One. And yes, that's right, in case you weren't aware, 2026 marks the 10-year anniversary of Rogue One coming out. Technically, the actual date is in November. I'm sure you all remember heading to the cinemas around Christmas time in 2016 to check out Rogue One for the first time in theaters. And I do believe we will talk more about the 10-year anniversary of Rogue One and sort of what it's meant and done to the landscape of Star Wars in that time later in the year. I think as we get closer to that December date, we'll have a chance to talk about Rogue One, and I'm sure by extension we'll get a chance to revisit Andor as well. So that's something to look forward to down the road. But again, they're celebrating this anniversary all year long, and Marvel is doing a series of one-shot comics, and we're going to talk about those. One of them is out now. One of them will be out this Wednesday, June 3rd, and then we have 3 more to look forward to coming out in the following months. So that will be what we talk about on the show. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to share all that Marvel-y comics goodness with you guys. And we're going to get into it right after the bump. You know what that means? It is time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
Get out of here. We'll hold them off.
You're going to have to relocate the covert.
This is the way.
This is the way.
All right, so as I said, yes, indeed, the 10-year anniversary of Rogue One is upon us. And it is kind of interesting to think back to the year and the months leading up to the release of Rogue One, and sort of wondering what its impact would be. Would this movie work? Would it land? Would a movie with completely unknown characters, no Jedi, would this work? Would we be able to set a movie, in the dark times of the Empire and get a compelling story out of it? I think most of us agree that the answer to that is yes, indeed. Overwhelmingly so. I talk to many Star Wars fans who tell me that Rogue One is their favorite thing that has happened to Star Wars since Disney acquired it. So, not surprisingly, that's probably a small sample size, but obviously it holds true for many fans out there. So much so that Marvel is doing a series of 5 one-shots that has started coming out last month right at May the 4th. To sort of commemorate the 10-year anniversary following some of the more popular characters of that film. And it kicked off, of course, not surprisingly, with Cassian Andor himself, who, again, there's been a shift even in the 10 years since Rogue One came out. And Cassian Andor has sort of become the star of that movie, despite the fact that it's very much centered on Jyn Erso's point of view. Now, I know that I don't know his name, There is a YouTuber out there who has done like a sort of Andor cut on Rogue One that sort of shifts the point of view to more of Cassian's story, makes it more of Cassian's adventure, more of Cassian's final steps, as opposed to Jin's, and he does so by interlacing cut scenes as flashbacks from Andor into his cut of Rogue One, which is all very, very interesting. I don't know how much, if I'll get around to checking it out at some point. I'm sure I will, but at the same time, while I find those projects to be interesting experiments from the fandom, and I do encourage those sort of things, there is a little tiny part of me that's like, I like this film the way it is, and I don't have a problem with it being from Jyn Erso's point of view, because that's a character that I've gotten invested with over the years as well. But again, a fun experiment, and if you're into seeing a new version of Rogue One, where it's from Cassian's point of view, you can check that out. Search it up on the YouTubes, and I'm sure you can find it. And let me know what you guys think of it. I don't know. Like I said, I will probably get around to it. It's not real high on my list of things to watch at the moment. But if enough people reach out and tell me, hey, you're really missing out on something pretty cool and unique, check it out. I probably will. I can be peer pressured to a certain degree. But as I said, these 5 one-shots, they kicked off last month, right around May the 4th. And of course, the first one was Cassian Andor. It was written by Benjamin Percy with art by Luke Ross. And if you don't know Ben Percy's work, he's been doing some really prolific stuff for Marvel over the years. A lot of stuff with Wolverine and Ghost Rider, Punisher. He did a bunch of the Predator versus comics for Marvel. I believe he did Predator versus Wolverine and Predator versus Spider-Man, and maybe a couple other ones. And those comic books were a lot of fun if you've had the chance to check them out. The Predator versus series under Marvel has been much better than I would have expected it to be. I wasn't sure if it was sort of a gimmick, but that Predator Wolverine is pretty awesome. And I have to admit, I haven't read all of them yet. I'm still getting ready to check out Predator versus Black Panther and some of the other ones that are out there. But Predator versus Wolverine, Predator versus Spider-Man, pretty awesome so far. And I believe there's going to be a Predator versus like the entire Marvel Universe here pretty soon. So a talented writer. The plot on this comic is, before the heist that shook the galaxy, a lone rebel operative walks into danger. Cassian Andor infiltrates the lawless maze of Kafrene, racing against troopers, bounty hunters, and time itself in a tense espionage thriller. And yes, this comic's out. I have read it. I did enjoy it. We spend some more time on the Ring of Kafrene and Cassian avoiding Imperials and trying to get to his contact, who's telling him what's going on Jeddah. So it's been touched on a little bit at the end of Andor. So it's just kind of fleshing out some of those final moments of the Andor series, I think, to a certain degree. Like I said, I found it to be a good comic book. I did enjoy it quite a bit. Strong storytelling, and of course, great art by Luke Ross. So I think you're really going to enjoy it. I should also mention that all 5 of the comics come with cover art by David Marquez, who is absolutely a phenomenal artist. So you'll see a sort of unified vision in the art of the covers. Now, of course, that's just the standard cover A, if you will. Marvel and many other comic publishers live by the variant covers these days. So you can track down a multitude of different covers for these comics, depending on how interested you are in going down that rabbit hole. I'm sure there's also some photo variants, and then like sort of the more exclusive collector item variants as well, like the 1 out of 50s, 1 out of 100s. Those ones that you'll be able to purchase for a hefty $sign. Or if you get one for a good price, you might be able to flip it for even more. But that's up to you. Now, the next book that comes out is the one that comes out this Wednesday. It is focused on Jyn Erso. It's written by Ethan Sachs with art by Ramon Arasanos. The plot for this one: on the toxic Wobani fields, Jyn Erso's brutal routine shatters when an unlikely crew begs the infamous slicer, Liana Halleck, to help her pull off an impossible escape. Can Jyn outwit Imperial security droids, tower cannons, and incinerators long enough to crack the code and keep a frightened young prisoner alive? Will a leap of faith heal old scars from Galen, Lyra, and Saw, Or will Wobani claim Jin's future before the rebellion ever can? I think we know the answer to that question, but again, I'm intrigued to read it. I have to be honest, Ethan Sachs isn't my favorite Star Wars writer. I hate to say that because he's had some highs, but I wasn't as big a fan of the Bounty Hunter series as I would have liked to have been. And while maybe it's unfair to put all that on Ethan, because Ethan has written some good comics over the years, no doubt about it. I am not trying to impugn the man's writing skills and talent. The Bounty Hunter series wasn't necessarily my flavor of Star Wars, and that's okay. We've talked about that before. So I'm interested to see what he does with Jin in this comic. Very, very intrigued by it. Coming out July 1st is the one that I might possibly be the most excited about because it's focused on Saw Gerrera. It's written by Mark Bernardin with art by Gabriel Guzman. And here's our plot description. After proving himself in the Clone Wars, Saw Gerrera was a soldier for the cause of freedom and was willing to do anything to secure it, including leading a mission deep into Imperial territory. At stake, a source of information that would provide a tactical advantage that could shift the balance of power in the rebels' favor. But is the price to be paid for that information too high? This is going to be... I Saw is such an interesting, fascinating character to me. Again, we know his ultimate fate, but his appearances over the years, since being introduced to the live-action version of him, have always been intriguing to me. You know, let's just say he is complex. he's this combination of complex and deep and layered, but also so super simple in so many ways because he's all about that end goal. So I'm really looking forward to getting to explore having a book that's very focused on his point of view. At least that's what I glean from that plot description. It's possible that it's not from his point of view at all, because there is something about Saw being an unknowable character that I find also very interesting as well. And obviously we flash back to his scenes in Andor in seasons 1 and 2, and you're just like, yeah, this guy's messed up. Tell me more. Tell me more. So very, very intrigued by what that comic has to offer. And again, that one will be out the beginning of July. All right, now on sale in August, Star Wars Rogue One, Chirrut and Baze, #1. Written by Stephanie Phillips, art by Kieran McCown. Baz Malbus and Chirrut Imwe attempt a covert mission to sabotage a kyber mine that has been overtaken by Imperial forces. But when something unexpected stands between them and their objective, the mission becomes far more complicated than they expected. To succeed, faith will be tested and an impossible choice must be made. Obviously, Baz Malbus and Chirrut Imwe became two fan favorite characters. We haven't gotten to explore them maybe as much as I would have thought we would have in the intervening 10 years. There was a nice little mini book. I don't even know what you call it. It was short. The Guardians of the Wills, written by Greg Rucka, that I thought was very, very good. But I'd like to know more about these characters, and maybe this is a step in that direction, a step in us getting to see more of them together and their histories via flashbacks or something. Again, very, very intrigued by the possibilities with this comic, though, it remains to be seen because, again, Jedha's fate is sort of known and sealed, but it would be interesting to see how they sort of ended up where we meet them in Rogue One. So, that one's going to be out in August, and again, very, very intrigued by the possibilities. Now, I think from a general fan perspective, the one that we might be most excited about is the final one, out in September, and that is Star Wars Rogue One, Darth Vader. Written by Chris Condon with art by Luke Ross, and an absolutely stunning cover by David Marquez. That sort of it mirrors the hallway scene, the infamous Darth Vader hallway scene of Rogue One, and all its glory, and all its shadowy red glory. Let me read the plot description for you on this one. Director Orson Krennic's negotiations with the gem-rich planet of Hereld have hit a standstill. Its leader, Harkay, that's a name I'm not familiar with, friends. He refuses to allow the Empire to mine its rare kyber deposits for use in the Death Star's deadly super laser. But when the Emperor catches wind of Krennic's failure, he sends his most trusted acolyte, Darth Vader, to ply the Kyber from Harkay by any means necessary. Hot diggity dog. You know that's not going to end well for that planet and that leader. That cannot possibly do well. So, very, 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 very interesting stuff. So 4 really exciting comic books to look forward to. One that you can track down now. The Andor book is out currently. I strongly encourage you to, if available, head on out, support your local comic shop. That's always a good idea. That's always the number one way to pick up your comics. If you can't do that, if there isn't a comic book store in your area, if you live in a house of clutter and you refuse to add to it, I understand if you want to go digital, you can get it off of Comixology via Amazon, or the Marvel Comics, Marvel Unlimited, I believe is their app, digital comics book service as well. So check it out. Again, 10 years of Rogue One, and a movie that I don't think at the time people thought would affect the Star Wars landscape as deeply as it has. So really nice to revisit and explore some of these characters leading up to where we find them in the films. So please, I do urge you, just check it out. And again, comic books are fun. Marvel's doing some decent work over there. I'll be honest, the Marvel comics aren't as much fun as when Dark Horse had the license and Disney didn't own the property, because I feel like they got to do way more fun and exciting stuff. Star Wars Legacy and then the Dawn of the Jedi books were some of my favorite things they were doing, because they were so radically different and new and fresh. And so far from Disney, I don't see a lot of that. I don't get a lot of new and fresh from them. And you guys have heard that complaint from me in the past. So I won't go down that rabbit hole necessarily at this moment. But I do encourage, check out these comic books, especially if you are a fan of Rogue One. Pardon me, don't have a cough button here, so I just had to pause it. But we are collected now. So yeah, go support comic books. Always a good idea. Always a big fan. Again, comic books kept Star Wars alive at a time when there wasn't a lot of Star Wars stuff going on. So I've always been a big fan of supporting those books, supporting those creators, and it's just fun. Comic books are just fun. Even if you're not a comic book guy, support the Star Wars books at the very, very least. Go out there, check them out. All right, I think we're going to wrap it up, and just let's look forward to what we're going to do next week. I don't know what it's going to be just yet. I have some ideas. I'm toying with the idea of doing a watch on Resistance, a animated series that I think is underappreciated. I think the change in animation style was jarring for people. I don't think they found the stories to be as compelling, and those are valid arguments. I'm not going to lie. But I do think there is some good stuff in that series. So I've sort of started doing a preliminary rewatch of the first couple episodes to see if I can kind of get into it, maybe approach it from a different angle. So that might be something we start here in the next couple of weeks. Otherwise, just stay tuned. You guys know I'm going to give you something to listen to. So, yeah. Hey, maybe we'll talk about Jen Erso's comic next week, and we'll see what other news comes out. I would still love to see them drop like some kind of Ahsoka teaser. I know it's only June, but it'd be really, really nice to get some sort of tease on what's next. Now, granted, Mando and Grogu are still in theaters, still doing well in theaters. And I guess they want to continue that support before they start throwing out new things. Though, hey, if they really want to boost the revenues on Mando and Grogu, they'll attach an Ahsoka trailer now, and we'll all have to go see Mando and Grogu a second and third time to get that Ahsoka trailer. Wouldn't that be some fun marketing maneuvering that would anger the internet? Which would only make me happier, because I love it when the internet's enraged about something silly. It's my favorite. And I guess we should talk about it, since speaking of The Mandalorian and Grogu in the box office, its earnings are up to $246 million globally, which is not too shabby. But here domestically, it did experience a pretty big drop-off at the box office, about 69 to 70%, depending on what outlet you're looking at, which, yeah, that's not great. I'm not going to lie. That's a big, big drop. Everyone seems to be really interested in checking out this Backrooms movie that's currently out. I don't know anything about it, so I can't comment on that. But what does that mean for Star Wars? What does it mean for Grogu? Again, depends on the outlet you're looking at. Some people seem to believe that it's a sign that Disney's not doing a good job of marketing the movie to anyone outside of the core group of fans. And again, but I think that was the calculated risk that Disney had to understand they were making, right? They wanted to play it safe. They wanted to go the safe route and do an all ages kind of approach to Star Wars, a family friendly approach to Star Wars. And by all accounts, Backrooms is not that. So the audiences that were looking for something more adult, more sophisticated, more grown up, got that with this new flick that's out. And families saw Mando and Grogu on its 3-day weekend, right, over Memorial Day. I can't say I'm totally shocked. Again, I'm not an expert on the analytics and the underlying meaning of the numbers for box office results. So I can only speculate what this means in the boardrooms of Disney. But hey, maybe it means we get to stream it faster. I don't know for sure. But as I sort of alluded to, hey, now's a good time to attach that Ahsoka trailer if they're trying to kick some more money into the box office for Mando and Grogu. But that could have a whole different backlash attached to it. So who knows? My intention is still to see that movie again. As long as it's in theaters, I'd like to see it again. I know it's going to give up its spot in IMAX to Masters of the Universe at the end of the week. So if you are an IMAX fan and you haven't seen it in IMAX yet, I would hurry up and get on that, as Masters of the Universe, I think, will be the next IMAX flick. But yeah, I enjoyed this movie. I don't suspect that will change too much when I do my rewatch of it here later in the week. But yeah, is it for everyone? Probably not. The fan base, the Star Wars fan base is divided, is probably the nicest way to put it. But it's nice to have Star Wars back in the theaters. That's all I'm going to say about it. We can get into the specifics a little bit more down the road. But yeah, an interesting thing to note. So go and check it out if you haven't checked it out. I did think it's a good time. And if you don't, this might be an indication that you'll be able to stream it or do a little video on demand thing in the very, very near future. All right. So yeah, take that with a grain of salt. Like I said, we're going to get out of here. We're going to wrap it up. We'll be back next week with something, whether it's Resistance or some more other Star Wars content to talk about. We're going to have something to talk about for Star Wars, because we always do. All right, Bucketheads, I thank you for the support. You guys are the best people on the internet. You come in, you check out the show weekly, and I really, really appreciate it. You guys are the best supporters out there on the internet. Go out there, be great Star Wars fans, kind, supportive, respectful, understanding, patient, tolerant, and spread the word about the podcast. Let them know to follow us on the socials at Mando_Vision on X and Insta, MandoVision at Blue Sky, and you can email me, MandoVisionTom@gmail.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share this show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. And if you can, sweet 5-star reviews. We're on all your favorite platforms, so check us out. All right, Bucketheads. We'll be back next week with more Star Wars. Because Star Wars is all. Star Wars is never ending. But in the meantime, this podcast can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
Just did the castle run in 12 parsecs. Not if you round down, buddy. Yeah.